What is your takeaway from his address?
Well, Dwight, as we were talking before, I think, he clearly was talking to the American people. He was laying out a list of all the reasons why it's a good thing, it's a good idea to support these countries, to support Ukraine, to support Israel, and to support others as well who, in his words, were fighting for democracy. In very practical ways, he was saying, look, if we support these countries in fighting these wars, then we don't have to put U.S. soldiers in harm's way, as he put it. So no American involvement in far-off wars if we can basically get somebody else to do the fighting. For instance, he said, sure, we're sending a lot of weapons, a lot of equipment overseas, but you know what? We're sending old stuff, and we're going to get new stuff to replace it, and all of that is going to be produced in the United States. So that's going to mean jobs here and production here. So he's giving very, very practical reasons why the United States should be involved. He does give general reasons as well, much loftier reasons that democracy needs to be protected, that you can't let forces such as Hamas or Putin, who he keeps talking about, sort of move in and take over democratic neighbors. But at the end of the day, I think the White House decided that it was going to be these practical arguments that we're going to get through. And when people look at the cost of sending things, we're hearing $100 billion is going to be in that bill he's going to send to Congress, and that's going to go mostly to Ukraine, but also to Israel, to other parts of the world, Taiwan as well, that these are actually investments in not only in democracy, but in keeping the United States safe, and maybe even in making it a little bit more prosperous.
Yeah, I think that is lost on a lot of people, not understanding that a lot of these weapons are made in the U.S. and American manufacturers are making money here. What do you think, then, Sasha, was Biden's incentive for delivering this address right now?
Well, obviously, from a practical perspective, I think there is a sense of urgency in Israel. Clearly, he's made promises that the United States is going to support Israel in whatever it does. We're hearing Israel is getting ready for a major ground offensive, for an invasion of Gaza. So they're going to need weapons from the United States. And we know that U.S. cargo planes are landing in Israel practically daily now with all kinds of equipment. And in Ukraine as well. Since the spotlight moved from Ukraine to Israel in the world media, I think there is a feeling in Ukraine that perhaps it's going to be abandoned. That was the other message that Biden had, that it wasn't going to be abandoned. So he's laying all of this out, and he's basically saying we're about to send a request for money to Congress. Of course, Congress may or may not be able to actually act on it, depending on whether the House of Representatives has enough leadership.
Yes. That's what I want to ask you next. What does the mess that's going on, and we spoke a little bit about this earlier, that's happening in the U.S. right now, do you think this speech maybe tonight was also from members of Congress to listen and said, hey, we need to fix this to get this aid out the door?
Yeah, I think it definitely was. Although I've been listening to representatives in the U.S. Congress all day,
yes,
and every one of them everyone that I've heard talks about how it's important to get back to work because we have important things to do, such as helping Israel. So I think there is an awareness there, but they have obviously some very practical things that they need to fix. Yes, I agree with you, though, that this message was meant to really all levels of U.S. society, both the elected and the electors.
I hate putting you on the spot like this, Sasha, but what did you think of the speech? Was it a good speech? Do you think people will be moved by what they heard from their president tonight?
It wasn't especially emotional. He tried to make it more emotional. He tried to make it personal.
As you said, very practical.
Yes, I think it was more practical, and I think he was also trying to deal with some domestic issues along the way there too, basically warning people against anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, not to get caught up in that as well. So those were the practical sizes as well. It was a bit of a shopping list, I think, of you know, if this doesn't convince you, then that might convince you, and there are different reasons why we should be doing this. But regardless, you should be supporting it.
Really appreciate you joining us tonight. Sasha Petrusik from our newsroom. Thank you, Sasha.
My pleasure, Dwight.
All right, let's unpack this now with Janice Stein, the founding director of the Munk School of Global Affairs and Public Policy at the University of Toronto. She was with us earlier before the speech, so Janice is back, and thank you for being here. Let's start with your reaction for what you just heard from President Biden. Do you think he made a good case for support for Israel and Ukraine, Janice?
You know what? I heard the conversation you were having with Sasha. Mm-hmm. I think there was a strong emotional component there. It was very interesting, the emphasis, first of all, that he placed on humanitarian aid to Palestinians living in Gaza. He separated out, and rightly in my view, the Palestinian people from Hamas. He talked about what the horrific killing, stabbing of this young Palestinian American citizen, and unmistakably said not only is anti-Semitism abhorrent, but Islamophobia is abhorrent. Now, why does all this matter?
Yes.
Of course it matters in the United States, but it also matters in all those Middle Eastern countries, which will hear a form of this speech. And I think this was Joe Biden's way of saying my embrace of Israel in reaction to those atrocious Hamas attacks does not mean that I don't hear you. And he literally used those words, I hear you. I think there was an important emotional dimension here.
Yeah, and he spoke about the the Palestinian-American child that was attacked and killed. You know, he also invoked, Janice, you know, he talked about the formation of NATO and how it kept peace in Europe for all these decades now. When he talks about this, you know, what's going on the planet right now, maybe as an existential threat to peace on our planet, is he overplaying that? Is that hyperbole, or is that really what's happening here on our planet right now?
No, I don't. And sadly, Dwight, I don't think it's hyperbole, because we really are seeing the disintegration of norms, you know, of institutions that were built after World War II that are frankly fraying literally before our eyes. Russia broke every one of those when it invaded Ukraine. It was an outright war of aggression. That's what it was. It was an unprovoked assault, frankly, on Ukraine. The Hamas attack, the nature of it, the attack against civilians, violates every norm that we have with respect to the laws of war. The president is not wrong. These are perilous days, and he is trying to rally two really important groups. First of all, the American public. Secondly, as you and Sasha both said, an entirely dysfunctional Congress. I was in Washington today.
Oh, no.
The House is paralyzed. I was, you know, just literally a block away from it, and it is locked in an argument. And the best they can come up with right now, frankly, practically speaking, is they are just going to empower an interim speaker because they can't elect a speaker. This is the great democracy of the world that cannot elect a speaker in its own house. So that was the message. It was in many ways a sophisticated message. Yeah. If we are dysfunctional at home, how do we lead abroad in a moment in the world which has never needed American leadership more? Yeah, I think it was a really good speech.
And I think you're right on that point. People are looking to America for leadership, and they're not getting that, but they got some of that from President Biden tonight. Janice, as time goes on, I mean, how do you think the perception here and the support could evolve? Because you said he did a good job tonight trying to convince Americans that this is important, not only to America, but to the world. How do you think this is going to evolve? How do you see it playing out?
You know, this is a job, in many ways, this is the most important job a president has. We call it the bully pulpit, but what it really means is that you bring the public with you. You know, there's war fatigue. The war in Ukraine has been going on, well, actually a short time when you think about World War II.
Absolutely.
But you know, the patience of the public.
Our attention spans have shortened since that time, Janice, considerably.
That's right. There's not a lot of strategic patience. If, in fact, a ground invasion of Gaza happens, which I think is overwhelmingly likely, it's not going to be a week. It's not two. Who knows? There was a 50-day war last time there was a ground invasion. And this one has the potential to escalate in many unforeseeable ways. This is not short. So his job is to keep the American public with him as we approach an election year, fractured Congress. His job, his most important job right now, is to rally the American public to stay the course and to send a message to Russia, to China, to Iran, to others that are looking at the United States. If I could take just 1 second here, Dwight.
I'll let you have it. You have it.
Okay. One of the things we know is that there were intercepts of discussions among Iran, leaders of Hezbollah and others, saying this is a moment of weakness in Israel. All right, because of the divisions over the judicial coup. So they
and the mass
looked at
protests.
And the mass protests in the street. This is a moment of opportunity. There is an argument here that Biden is making to the world here too. Yes, we are having issues, internal issues, but don't mistake who we are. We are committed. We will stay the course, and that's what he's asking the American public to do.
Janice
It's an
Stein.
important message.
It really is, Janice. She is the founding director of the Monk School of Global Affairs and Public Policy at the University of Toronto, and we're so glad she was able to join us before and after the speech to break it down. Thank you, Janice.
Pleasure to be with you, Dwight.